Joining me here now on the Rich Eisen Show is none other than Hall of Famer Jerome Bettis. How do you like those words together, Jerome? How do you like it?
Oh, that's incredible. That it's one of those you don't think whatever happened. You don't think that's associated with your name until someone says that, and it's special.
Well, Jerome, you're a special guy, man. Anybody who's ever met you, and I've known you for, wow, gosh, 12 years, ever since you hung out with the NFL Total Access crew, bowling with us in our first 3 months of existence, and getting to know you and who you are. I'm talking to you, as you know, from our L.A. studios. If I had told you when you were an L.A. Ram, Jerome, that this would be where you wound up at the end of your career, what would you have said?
I would have said, yeah, you got to be kidding me, because you got to remember, when I was in L.A., I had just went to that position. I was a fullback in college. I didn't know much about, being a tailback and the responsibility. So I was making a tremendous change, and I thought, hey, if I can last a couple years, that'd be great. I had no idea that, I would be able to play even 13 years. So to say, hey, you'll be a Hall of Famer, that would have been something far-fetched, in my opinion.
What was that moment when you wound up in Pittsburgh? What was your thought process in your career back then, Jerome?
Well, my thought process, I'll never forget what I thought when Coach Coward called me and said, hey, we want you, on the Steelers. It was one of those, man, this is incredible, because they had just lost in the Super Bowl. So I'm saying, man, this is a Super Bowl caliber team. I went from a perennial loser, that was in L.A. and then we went to St. Louis, to now a team that had just lost in the Super Bowl, and they had that kind of talent still on the team. I was super excited to be going there, because I just knew I was going to have a lot of success with that group of guys.
I'm here with the bus, Jerome Bettis, Hall of Famer, going in the Pro Football Hall of Fame coming up in August right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Do you know who's going to present you yet, JB?
I'm working on that process. I mean, okay. It's kind of interesting. My father would have been the natural candidate, yes, but obviously he's no longer with us. So my brother, maybe my mother, but my wife actually kind of said, "Hey, what about me?" And it was kind of funny, but it was one of those thoughts. And I have a son. He's 7. I don't know if he's quite big enough yet. So I'm still kind of weighing all the options right now.
Hey, Jerome, I remember, speaking of your dad, after the Super Bowl win in Detroit. Do you remember that, when you came on post-game show on NFL Network?
And I had about 20, all my entire family behind the stage. It was me, you, Ray Lewis. I trust me, I remember like it was yesterday.
Jerome, I think you are vastly underestimating the number of people that were there. I think, my memory, again, I might be, in some sort of
I am.
remembering state here.
I just threw a number out there. I had over 40 tickets, so
wow.
I'm sure it was.
And they were all there, though.
It was upwards to that number.
They were all there, though, Jerome. And I just remember, sometimes my job is to just lay out, as they say in the TV business, and just let the moment play out. And that was one of those moments for me. What is your recollection, celebrating that moment with your dad? I believe he passed a few weeks later, if I'm not mistaken. So what was that moment like for you, Jerome?
It was a special moment, because, he was my biggest fan. He didn't care about all the hoopla and all that. He just cared that his son was playing football. He was passionate about me and everything that I did. I mean, he could tell you numbers and everything like that about me, and it was one of those. He was all about the things that I was able to accomplish. So I was happy in that moment that he and my mother was there to share with me, because if you remember, they made it to every single game I ever played in my professional career. So for them to be there, for it to be in Detroit, the culmination of my career, for my mom and dad to see it from beginning to end, and it end with a Super Bowl, I was just so happy for both of them, because they got an opportunity. And in retrospect, I was that much more happier that he got an opportunity to see, his son become a champion. And obviously, the regret now is that he didn't get an opportunity to see me become Hall of Famer.
Yeah, well, but we know he does. You know, he's
Yeah, exactly.
We know that, Jerome. I'm with Jerome Bettis right now, Hall of Famer, here on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, so Jerome, Super Bowl. Let's say Super Bowl 40. Let's say it was closer than the final score of that game. Super Bowl 40. Here we are. You've got a half-yard line situation. Let's just say, I'll throw a number out there, 30 seconds left in this game, in the Super Bowl. And there's a pass play that's called instead of handing the ball off to you. What do you do about that, Jerome Bettis?
Oh, my goodness.
What do you do?
I am livid. I am super mad. And there was a case not of this magnitude, but we had a game. I'll never forget it. We were playing Jacksonville, I believe it was. I think we were in overtime or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it was a 4th and 1 play, a 3rd and 1 play, and they didn't put me in. And in that play, quarterback fumbles the ball, it gets picked up, run back for a touchdown, we lose the game. And I'm saying to myself, are you kidding me? You don't put me in. So I was pissed, and I made it known, my resentment for that situation, because the point I'll make it is you have me on the team for this reason, and now you, in the moment where you have to make a decision, you go away from what you do best to do something else. I was offended, and I would, if I was Marshawn Lynch, I would be offended as well. I'm saying, this is your bread and butter. This is what we do. This is not the time to go away from it. We've got the timeouts. We should try to pound this thing 1, 2 times, 4th down. Hey, that's the moment of truth. That's when you got an option, run a pass, and maybe you put it in Russell Wilson's hands at that point. But you go with what you know, and I think that's what they went away from.
Well, Jerome, also that helped. That was the final play, as we all know, for scrimmage for Seattle, and New England's a champion, and Brady's got 4 rings now. You were a part of the worldwide leader in sports trio of analysts after the Brady press conference, where Brunell was moved to tears, essentially. And do you still feel that Brady was being less than honest in that press conference, or the information that's trickling out about the football since then has changed your mind? Where do you stand?
There's nothing that changes my mind, because the problem here is, if you can explain to me why the Colts balls were not changed in any way at any point in time, the weather, the barometric, or whatever you want to call it, if you can tell me that it affected the Colts balls, then I understand that. But from my point of view, you cannot, and nobody's point of view, you can explain the differences with the balls. And so with that being said, yes, someone knew. Mm-hmm. Clearly someone knew. Tom Brady understood what type of ball that he likes. Mm-hmm. Now, he can say he didn't know that it was not, at the proper amount. He can say that. But he can't say that the balls were the same as all the other balls. He can't say that, because when I felt that ball, mm-hmm. I knew that ball was different from the other balls. There's no question about that.
You sure, Jerome?
And listen to me, anybody who's played this game for a long period of time and has touched the football regularly can tell you the difference. Okay, now you sat there and asked a defensive lineman, he probably couldn't tell you. But a guy who handles the football on a regular basis can tell you that a ball is the difference from wherever it was, 10-5 to 12-5. You can tell the difference. That's not even a question about that part.
So Deflategate is not over for you, Jerome Bettis?
No, it's not over. It's not over for anyone. I mean, it's not over. It's not over, period. I mean, if you look at the Atlanta Falcons now, they look like, they piped in noise, right?
Yes.
So now there's a competitive advantage that they gained, right? Mm-hmm. So there's going to have to be ramifications there. So now, if there's ramifications for the Atlanta Falcons, if there's going to have to be some ramifications there again if you find that there was an issue. And there clearly was an issue because the balls were not the same. So there was an issue. Now the question is, who did it? If you can't find out who did it, then you know, hey, it was done, and you have to pay the penalty for that. It may not be as significant a penalty if we know who did it, but it still has to be some type of penalty because there was a competitive advantage that was reached.
So my last question for you, this is Jerome, and you know I say this with love because, you know, again, we go way back, Jerome, right?
Absolutely.
We go way back. You know where I'm going with this. Are you sure your comments on Brady aren't said because he went to the greatest institution of higher learning, an institution that your institution of higher learning is running like chickens from playing anymore? Are you sure this isn't some sort of Michigan Notre Dame thing going on, Jerome? You sure deep-seated?
Oh, my goodness.
No, seriously, now, I don't want to hypnotize you and put you on a couch and get your id, your inner psychology for all of the viewers and listeners of this show out there. Are you sure this isn't part of that, Jerome Bettis?
Well, let me ask you this part before I answer that question.
Yes.
Do you have a horse in the race in regards to either university?
Of course I do. Absolutely I do. Yeah, Jerome.
Sure. So let's for the listeners' sake, know that there is a bias, from the interviewer's perspective. Okay. Sure. So with that being said, clearly there is a bias from a Notre Dame perspective to a Michigan perspective.
See, every card is on the table here now.
Every card is on the table.
Okay,
but,
Jerome.
I will say but.
Yes.
But that does not and should not ever come into play as an analyst. Now, from a Notre Dame perspective, absolutely. all those guys in that color, that the off blue color.
Oh boy.
That color, those guys, all you guys stink. Absolutely.
Jerome, that said, yes.
But I would not ever put my personal belief in a situation dealing with an NFL issue.
Okay, Jerome. I'm glad we cleared that air somewhat. And thanks for calling in. I look forward to seeing you again real soon.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
You bet. That's the man. That's Jerome Bettis.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.